Okay, so we've looked at how it works, how the body responds. I mean, let's be honest, the thing we like most is then how do I use it? And what you're looking at on the screen right now is an overview of our movement system and training components. Now, it's way beyond the scope of this short video series and the workshop that comes with it to cover everything. That's why we have in our pathway our certification and our specializations. What we're going to share with you today is some of the big bang for buck, most beneficial movements and how to do them on the plate. So you can see under prepare, we've got soft tissue, functional flexibility and mobility, and stability. Under perform, we've got core integration, functional strength and power. And under recover, we've got functional flexibility, massage, and soft tissue. Each of those have their own training methodology. We're going to start with prepare and functional flexibility. But before we do that, now we know how the plate works and how the body responds, what would be some of the big benefits of preparing on the plate versus just on the ground? Because remember, whatever you do on the ground, you can do on the plate to upgrade those results in less time. Number one, massive increase in blood flow and circulation. So think of your tissues like a sponge, and you're about to go train, practice, compete. It wouldn't make sense to stretch a sponge that's dehydrated. In fact, if you take a dry sponge and stretch it, it rips, which is actually very often what happens in the human body when we're cold and tight and stretch. One of the great things to the power plate is because of that muscle pump, 30 times a second, we get increased circulation and blood flow, which actually hydrates the tissues and increases the temperature. Number two, we get an increase in extensibility, the length of our tissues, flexibility, but we also get improvement in joint range, mobility. So we get flexibility and mobility, soft tissue and hard tissue. Finally, not finally, but we also now have the software. Remember, everything here is controlled by this. So we know that research shows that we can actually increase motor learning and motor control. So if you're doing a good quality movement on the power plate in as quick as 30 seconds, you can improve that movement rapidly. And then finally, it puts the key in the ignition and turns the car on. So we've warmed you up, we've lengthened you, but now we've got to get ready to run the car, right? That's the benefits of using the power plate for functional flexibility. Now on the screen and in your handout now, you'll see our guidelines. These are all the guidelines for prepare. Let's just look at functional flexibility for this video. We typically suggest 4 to 8 dynamic flexibilities. Regardless of whether you're playing tennis or getting ready for a lower body workout, you want no less than 4, but you might go as much as 8. You want 30 to 35 hertz, low amplitude. Why? Because I'm trying to turn you on, not fatigue you. You would not want to do functional flexibility on 50 high, because that's actually going to start to exhaust the system. We're just trying to get you ready to go do the meat and potatoes of the workout or the practice. We're going to do 30 to 60 seconds per stretch, 1 to 2 sets. So everything I'm going to show you with Laura now is at those guidelines. Okay, it's time to get into movement. We're going to start our prepare functional flexibility. Remember, everything in here is 30 seconds, 30 hertz, low, 1 to 2 sets. Laura's going to join us, and I'm going to start with our hamstring, Laura. Let's get that left foot on. And all I'm going to do is give her a few simple coaching cues. I want you to snap your laces to the sky, zip up, and sit in the chair. Going to start our power plate, and we're looking for rhythmical, smooth movement. Everybody moves a little differently. If they need support, feel free to do that. This is our foundational hamstring and posterior hip stretch. Okay, we're just going to have Laura stop there. After this, we know that the actual hamstring, we know those thigh muscles don't just go forward and backwards. They go side to side and they rotate. So all we're going to do now is coach Laura, if you could, mate, is to just, as you sit down in the chair, hold that position, then drive your hips side to side, just like a typewriter. Beautiful. You see she's still got that great snap laces. She's zipped up. She's in the chair. But now she's got what we call like a hip driver, left and right. And then last one, we're going to take those flashlights, Laura, and as you sit down, take them around the corner. Yeah, beauty. You can't do it better than that. You're going to see as she sits down, she gets length in the hamstring. And then she's actually using her pelvis to create rotation. And you're really going to feel that hamstring now coming up the inside and the outside. And so, great job. Okay, so that's the hamstring, the basic move, and then we're going to use our pelvis to drive in 3 different directions. But the reality is, whether I'm picking something up in life or hitting a ball, the arms are usually involved. So our third progression is actually, I'm going to allow Laura to choose which way she takes her pelvis. And Laura, you can take your hands either forward at knee height, or you can go on 45-degree angles, you can rotate. Whew, this really now, by bringing the arms in, increases the length through the back of that hamstring and thigh, and it's also integrating the body a lot more dynamically than the first one. It's not right or wrong, it's not better or worse, it's just what works for your client. Great job. Okay, movement number 2, we're gonna get that anterior hip and thigh. Big issue for most people. Why? Because we sit down all day, every day, in the car, at work, at home, and then we stand up and we try to move and everything there says, I'm a little gunked up. So we're gonna have Laura in a kneeling position, a half kneeling position. And in this one, we're focusing on the leg that's in the kneeling position. I'm gonna make sure she's in a good, stable position, and all I want her to do, again, is zip up and just drive her weight forward and backwards. And for us, it's really important that she's doing this perfectly. You'll see her entire weight goes forwards and backwards, as opposed to hinging in that lumbar spine, in that low back. Okay, getting great length through the front of this hip. Second option, we're gonna go to that point of first stretch, Laura, and now we're gonna drive that hip left and right, and you can see perfectly now that hip's starting to open up on the inside and the outside, as well as front and back. And last, we've got to rotate. So as Laura drives forward, she's going to rotate around the corner, come back home. Yeah, beautiful. Okay, good job, Laura. Third and final tweak on this one is in life, we typically use our arms, whether we're jumping to dunk or catch a ball or pick a kid up. So yes, I want flexibility here, but I would like these arms to get involved in the game. So Laura's going to be able to take those arms either overhead, front and back. She can go left and right overhead. And then she can bring them down to chest level and spin around the corner. And while she's doing that, you can see the effect it has on that hip. So we started just going forward and backward, then we changed direction with the pelvis, and finally we brought in the arms. One more progression for you. Now we can get standing, okay? Now Laura's she can go any of the ones we showed her. She can just drive up and down, she can drive front and back, she can use her arms. But by standing up on the plate, a lot more dynamic, a lot more friends have to come to the party, there's a lot more stability required. So you can see how going from a kneeling position to arms to standing gradually, progressively increases demand on that flexibility. Okay, let's go round the corner to the posterior hip and glute, which on a lot of people is really gunked from sitting down all day. Now remember, if you're whizzing through the course or going back through the course, all of these functional flexibilities are 30 hertz, low, 30 to 60 seconds, 1 to 2 sets. All right, now we can do this a couple of basic ways to start. We're gonna start kind of parallel to the plate. So that leg on the plate is kind of at a 90-degree angle for most people, but the key here is the non-weight-bearing leg, the leg that's just hanging off of the plate. The reason I like to do it this way is many people don't have good hip mobility, and so they end up stressing their low back. In this position, it allows Laura's stance leg, if you will, to just hang freely at whatever angle is pain-free for her. Okay, Laura's gonna zip up, and all she's gonna do is take her chest and drive it forwards and backwards. As she does this, she's releasing that left glute and hip. Beautiful. And you notice what she's doing a great job of, she's not just collapsing, she's actually driving her chest to get that active release in the hip. Good job, Laura. Now what we're gonna do is why don't we take it either 45 degrees to your left or 45 to your right. Perfect. We're adding in that element of different directions, and with 45 degrees, we get both a little side to side and a bit of rotation, so this is great. Awesome job. Right, this one we're going to use a single arm, and in Laura's case a right hand, and all she's going to do now is reach 45 degrees that way, and she can change the height as she goes. So as she goes, she can go higher, she can go lower, to get a different emphasis on that left glute and hip. Great job. Now, we said at the beginning there's 2 ways we can set up. The other orientation is actually to face the plate. Same hip on the left, same perfect zip-up posture, same drives forward and on angles. She can even now use her hand to maybe grab onto that power plate and really drive herself. But you'll notice that back leg needs to have a lot more flexibility to get in this position. So really just map it to the capacity of your client. Whichever one allows them to get the job done is right for them. Okay, our last one in the series of functional flexibility is a powerhouse for those lats and everything in that posterior upper back region. Laura's going to start in a 4-point position on her knees, and she's going to pretty much just her hands and wrist on the plate. So she's going to have to move her knees back far enough so that when she sits back, she gets a nice length through those lats, that shoulder blade, everything basically between the shoulder and the hip. Now, if you want to add a little bit more stretch, she's going to turn those thumbs up as she sits back. Beautiful. That little bit of rotation, you'll find a big difference up in the shoulder. Okay, so this is our base kneeling lat and upper back stretch. Number 2, let's take it in different directions. She'll get the stretch, and then she'll start driving side to side. And you can see on the spine, like, that's beautiful. That shoulder blade, that spine, we're getting some lateral flexion. We need that. And then finally, I'm going to have Laura rotate. This is massive. Now, you want to release those ribs. You really want to start to breathe better. This is a big move. Okay, my personal favorite is to go to a single arm. So Laura's going to go with her left. She's going to get that first stretch. And now she's going to use rotation with the other arm. We're getting a stretch on the left, going back, and now we're getting mobility on the right by rotating that spine. Beautiful job. Okay, that's our kneeling lat and upper back series.